I'm Shirley Gallagher. I'm an EU Climate Pact Ambassador based in Ireland, in Cork, and I'm going to share my sustainability journey with you today. I'm going to tell you about why I'm a Climate Pact Ambassador, why I do what I do, and also how could you make a difference. I'll be talking about this image here, but before I do, I'm going to share my screen so that I will share my story. So I'm a director in two companies. I have a consultancy called CISPRO Systems for Progress Limited. It was set up in 2009. And I work in collaboration with others. And I'll show you some of the people I've worked with in the past. And Second Life Battery Services Limited is a startup I'm involved with for the last year or so. And I'm really excited about what we're doing next. And I'm welcoming you on this sustainability journey that is mine. I bring in Albert Einstein here because he's quite a hero of mine. But he has these wise words: those who have the privilege to know have the duty to act. This podcast for EU Climate Pact Ambassadors is part of my duty to act. This is an image from my mother's kitchen window. It's from her island home off the coast of Donegal. And if Ireland was a clock, it's at 11 o'clock on the map of Ireland. There's extreme weather most of the time. And this could be seen as a good day on the island. It is wet, wild, and windy. Our average wind speed is 9 meters per second. Commercially viable wind is at 6 meters per second. And you can see the little stone walls along. These are hundreds of years old, where my ancestors have eked the stones out of the ground to get enough clay to cover their agricultural tillage. These are my grandmother's parents. So this is Sarah Early. She married Hugh Macaulay, and they lived on the island. These are their three elder daughters. Daughters were not recommended in those days. They were seen as a burden more than sons in those days, and they had 5 girls before they had their 6th child was a boy. This is Mary, Bridget, and Annie. My granny was born in 1907, and in 1904, or around about that time, Queen Victoria, who was in charge of the British Empire at the time, and Ireland was part of the British Empire, on her 50th year of reigning, she developed Jubilee nurses. So these nurses they came out to help people, and childbirth was quite dangerous in those days, and they would have helped in those days. But I like this image because it highlights how sustainable my family were. And when you're on an island, you recognize that life is finite, things are finite, and resources, sometimes you have to make do. So their clothes are handmade, their baskets are handmade. These are willow baskets, and every family would have had a willow area where they would coppice the willow every year. This is turf or peat, and it's really low grade carbon solid fuel, but that's how they would have heated the house and cooked their food on a big hearth, and they, you can see the chickens. They would have had eggs. They would have fish, although they weren't meant to fish because the landlord owned the sea at the time. And you can see how stony the land is here as well. This is on the east side of the island, and the thatch is made from straw that they would have grown themselves. The house would have been made from stone, which they would have gathered from the fields, and then they would have used lime, which was seashells that they would have cracked and heated up and crushed to make the lime, and painted inside and out from a hygiene and from a brightness point of view. And about me, I became a scientist. I tested water for a very long time, and I love learning. I still do to this day. And part of my journey in testing water was I enjoyed training people, and I loved kind of upskilling and empowering people. So I set up a SkillNet in 2007, which went really well specifically for environmental professionals, and the leadership skills that I gained made me recognize I needed to improve my soft skills. And I'll give you an example of how I improved my soft skills, because I was quite good at a technical point of view. I used to run a lot of machines to get results out of them from the water, and that helped me. But I had a road to Damascus moment. So I was running a training, I was running a SkillNet for environmental professionals in 2008, and the crash is around about this time, but we weren't really aware of how big an impact it was going to have on our lives. But in 2008, I went to a conference on climate change with the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change. They were after winning the Nobel Peace Prize the year before, along with the UN Environment Programme, and Al Gore, who was the vice president at one point of the United States of America. And what did I discover? John Gibbons, the Irish journalist, says it beautifully. He describes climate change in that we are all on the Titanic. The Titanic is our planet, and we are burning the furniture to stay afloat. And I think he's saying this as Kate and Leo were on the Titanic in 2012, because I've been using it since at least 2014. And it's also been likened to the misinformation that was developed around smoking and smokers. When I was a child, I thought if you were an adult, you had to smoke. There was one person I knew who didn't smoke, and I was fascinated by her not smoking. I thought it was a necessity for all adults to smoke. And that changed as I became a teenager, and you could see the little packs coming out with the warnings on them, and they've got more and more horrific. And they actually stopped my father from smoking. He used to smoke 40 cigarettes a day, and he stopped eventually. It took him a while, but he stopped. And he used to call them cancer sticks, because that's what they were. That's what they are. And nowadays, and I have lived in Glanmire for quite some time, this is the estuary of the Glashboy River in Glanmire, in Cork. It's very pretty. It's liable for flooding. It's flooded at least 3 or 4 times since I've come here in 25 years, sometimes quite badly. An example, this is a tributary of the Glashboy. This is the Glenmore, and it flooded into my home in October last year during Storm Babette, and the impact is still there. This is 2 weeks ago in Spain. Over 200 people were found dead. Devastation everywhere, and Malaga was under issues as well. And this comes, I think, from around about 2014 as well. Again, the Climate Summit is the COP, the Conference of the Parties, and we have made a lot of progress in 10 years. But as the International Energy Agency shares with us, we're doing well, but we're not doing it fast enough. If we look back at the smokers, we don't have the 40 years it took for smoking to be shown as harmful. So what have I done? So this image here is this image in front of you. And I found after I lost my job in 2008 with EnviroSkills, I had time to think because there was nobody hiring because everyone lost their jobs. And I thought, how can we create a better way? How can we bring sustainability into today and, support a sustainable future for us all? And I saw it as a way of developing sustainability on a community scale, on a housing estate scale, and in fact, Sustainable Energy Authority of Ireland developed better energy communities, I think around 2013, 2014. I actually got my installation done through a better energy community because it's more cost effective if you can do all the houses around you and not just one and drive around. So there's lots of stories involved in this. And it's a sustainable future that's possible today is the way I describe this image. And it's a fun way to explore what could we do to work, rest and play more sustainably. And moving forward into 2020, I was going to do a Climate Reality Project, which is a training course where Al Gore of the US Vice President, the ex-US Vice President, when he had written An Inconvenient Truth. And, part of his fundraising, part of the fund from the Nobel Prize was used to set up this Climate Reality Project, which is free training that develops people such as myself to understand about how we reduce emissions, what's real about climate change and kind of getting rid of the misinformation. And Climate Reality Project, with COVID happening, didn't happen, in the conventional way, which would have been a couple of thousand people meeting in a hotel, learning all about it, going away and passing on the good word. In 2020, 10,000 people, including me, 132 countries went on Zoom, and we got lots of videos thrown at us, and we developed a network. And during that time, I discovered that there were a lot of people that didn't have the knowledge, they didn't have the scientific knowledge, they didn't have the presentational skills. And as a result of that, I set up a speechcraft because I was also a member of Toastmasters International. Now, Toastmasters International is about public speaking and leadership skills. I'm going to talk about that later, but for now, I use the Climate Reality Project to support and Toastmasters. So I joined them together and I used the Speechcraft program, which is a program in Toastmasters which allows you to look at the nuts and bolts of what makes a good speech. And I developed this in 2021, and we developed 5 sustainable speakers. And following that, with the help of Kavita Dulai and Colette Ainscough, the 3 of us developed Sustainable Speechcraft and had 14 people upskill in Speechcraft in 2022. As a result of that, we set up a Sustainable Speakers Club in April 23, and we were chartered in August of that year, and sustainablespeakers.org is the result. Toastmasters teaches you leadership skills and about collaboration, because we do need each other. And here are some images of an event we ran recently with Cork. So I'm currently president of the Guardian Toastmasters Club, which meets in the University College Cork in Ireland, and also online on Zoom. And Marilyn Latchford joined us from Canada during COVID and has stayed. And she came as part of the Irish diaspora, in that her granny had emigrated to Canada from Dunmanway in Cork, and Marilyn was curious to see how Cork Toastmasters behaved. So we had a very lovely evening with our Lord Mayor of Cork, who is a former Toastmaster, but he's also an EU Climate Pact Ambassador. And the president of UCC, who's Professor John O'Halloran, and the project manager for EU Climate Pact Ambassadors in Ireland is Dr. Dewey Felix from the South East Energy Agency. And we all spoke on the 22nd of October in Cork City in the council chambers on the actual anniversary of the very first Toastmaster International meeting. And there are videos available of both the Lord Mayor's speech and the President's speech, which is really good. And there's photos, and I'll put the links in later. And we took lots of photos and had a really good time. And interestingly, as a result, Elaine Gard is a very good friend of mine, and she set up Future Orchard Trust, which is a trust supporting an apple orchard in a really ancient woodland area. So it's beautiful oak and hazel woodland. And anyway, Elaine got in contact with me, and Mary O'Connor is a friend of hers, and she took the photo. And Mary's dad was one of the founding fathers of Cork Toastmasters, so the very first Toastmaster Club in Cork. There are 18 in Cork City and County now, but Mary O'Connor's father was one of the founding members, and his other children came to the event as well. So this is Dennis O'Connor, who is a former Toastmaster as well, and Nuala, who is on the Irish Medical Council now, so she's a GP. Marilyn, who you have met earlier, myself, Councillor Dan Boyle, our Lord Mayor, the President, Elaine. This is a minister from Ohio, and Hilary Byrne came from New York when he was in Ireland, but he came down to the event because he's very interested in engaging with the National University alumni, because he's looking to be elected to the Seanad later on this year. And here is Dr. Dewey Felix. And here she is speaking about her role as the project officer supporting the Irish EU Climate Pact Ambassadors. These are some of the companies that I've worked with and for, both in terms of collaboration and supporting them in their sustainability journey. And one of my projects at the minute is the Second Life Battery Services Limited, where we take waste batteries, we test them. If there's enough juice to go again, we put them in new batteries and we remotely control them. And we have our first client, which is the Cork-based Cloudkicks. It's a data center in Hollyhill, and we will be piloting our new repurposed batteries very soon. So what can you do? You can open your mind to new experiences, and I'm going to give you a baker's dozen. You can do all or some, and let me know if you have. So you can get involved in local projects or bigger national projects if you like. You need to understand regulations and legislation because they are coming down the track in terms of sustainability. Uncover your circle of influence. It's important to understand your circle of influence and to use it wisely. Buy things that are built to last. Insulate buildings. As I said, I insulated my building around 2018 on a better energy community project. Fly less if you can. Eat more plants. Eat less meat. Notice nature. Plant trees. I've got a tiny garden and I've got way too many trees in it, but it's so nice, and I call it my Japanese jungle because it's very noticeable. In the hot spell, my garden is 5 degrees lower because of the trees, and that really makes a difference. You use what you can, and I will be doing one later with a lemon. I have multiple uses of a lemon before I get rid of it. And, you know, there are different things that we can do to reuse. And I really like giving experiences as presents, because if we're not buying a lot of stuff that we don't particularly need, you know, it's a great experience. Turn off the taps when you're brushing your teeth, or when when you're using water for any reason. And shorten your shower. And if you can, go cold. Your immune system will thank you for it, and you'll have a really short shower, and your bank balance will also help. I'll also be grateful. And as we come near to the end, this image was taken while we were waiting for Greta in 2019 in Lisbon, as she was making her way towards COP in Madrid. And I'm passing the baton to you. Use your vote wisely and to act now. And if you need help making the change, give me a shout, or else we're underwater. This is Middleton 2019, and they were put out of terrible things in them. So in conclusion, I shared my sustainable journey with you. I gave you some examples of what I've done to date, what I plan to do, and I've also given you some suggestions on what you can do. And I thank you for listening if you're still watching till the end of this, and reach out and consider becoming a Climate Pact Ambassador.